What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chaotic Minds. As always, it is Winged.
And a midget.
And so we promised this the last time that we talked about this. And then if you listen to our last show, which was done yesterday,
Yes.
we went ahead and we said, hey, we're definitely going to talk about this time. So we are going to touch on what's been going on here in stateside for all those who don't listen to us or who listen to us who are not in the United States. However, there is something I do want to talk about before we get into the nitty-gritty of all of that.
Okay.
So it's two different stories, but they're tied together, and I'll explain it here in just a second.
Okay.
So first things is, I believe it's in either Iowa or Idaho, one of those I states. There have been a lot, and I mean a lot, of schools that have been falling apart. And instead of the schools being able to take care of the repairs and all of that, they're stuck and they can't. And there's actually been several instances where students have had to go to school in these rundown, broken down schools, and they've stayed open for years before finally being shut down because they were deemed unsafe.
Well, Denver has an issue, and they refuse to fix. So they thought, let's just push school starting back by a couple weeks after everybody else starts, and that'll solve the problem.
Well,
no air conditioning.
Part of what has been going on is there's a law, a statewide law, that says that in order for the schools to be able to get the funding, the state is willing to do that. However, they would increase the taxes of the businesses in the surrounding area to the school to pay for it. Now, a lot of people are really wanting these schools to get fixed. 53% of people are like, yeah, we want to get these schools fixed, but they can't get the majority of it or they can't get an overwhelming majority, I think it's like a 2/3, because these businesses and the residents that are around that area are like, we want to fix the schools, but we don't want to have to pay more in taxes.
Yeah, and basically they want their cake and eat it too.
Yeah, there was one story. This woman was a teacher. She had bought a year's worth of supplies for her class, right? She put it in one of the closets in the room that's meant to be a storage closet. And
you're talking about the hygiene stuff.
No. We're talking school supplies.
Okay, because there's another teacher, and I'll tell you that one afterward.
And all of a sudden she heard this noise coming, one day after a really heavy rainstorm. And she went to go investigate, and when she opened up the supply closet, the ceiling had fallen in, and everything in that supply closet had gotten soaked. It ruined all of the school supplies that she paid for her class. When she went ahead and went to the the administrators and the faculty people, they went ahead and told her, "Oh, hey, but yeah, by the way, we were supposed to tell you about that closet. Oh well," and then never never replaced any of the stuff, and never repaired it at the same time. It was like that for the rest of the school year. And it's like, how are we going to go ahead and put, nowadays, everywhere that you go, no matter what school you're in, whether it's public school or private school, or here in Denver with some of the schools that aren't as well up or well going or profitable, or however you want to put it, to some of the ones that are the most, they are the best schools in the state, everyone is pushing hey, if you want to make it in life, you need to go to college and get a degree. But they're not willing to go ahead and in that state fix anything to provide their students the resources that they need, up to and including the building that they're in. Like, here's my thing. Do I think people benefit from a college education? Absolutely. I mean,
Is it required? No.
it shouldn't be required. Like, we still need people to work construction. We still need people to
Work in environmental services and hospitals.
do that. We still need people to, work in grocery stores and fast food places, and do those tough jobs that hey, you don't have a degree, so here are the options that you're given. We still need people for that. We still need ditch diggers. We still need that. Mike fucking Rowe.
Mm-hmm.
Dirty Jobs went before Congress and said that whole thing I just did. I stole it from him, so I apologize. Hi, Mike.
See, the thing is with that, and one of the things that I find fascinating is they treat these people in the service industry like they're beneath them because, they're not educated, they're not this, they're not that. And if you look at it, these are a lot of people's second jobs because the jobs in their degree field aren't paying the cost of living.
Or they're full. Like, nobody in that area is hiring, and they can't afford to move somewhere else
because of how much they're being paid elsewhere. And that's that vicious circle where everybody's like, we need to raise the minimum wage, $15 an hour minimum, which I happen to agree.
As cost of living does go up, the minimum wage should go up. Like, the minimum wage, when it was brought into conception, it was meant for a single family member to go to work.
Single adult household.
Single working adult.
Yeah.
So, like,
one working parent.
The man, when this came out, it was typically the male, went out, had a job, wife and kids were at home, and the minimum wage was the minimum amount that family needed to have food, housing, and utilities.
Yeah.
And now, because the cost of living has gone up, there for the longest time, it was still set at that lower level and acting like, oh, hey, this is perfectly fine.
They talk about inflation and how the cost of living goes up, minimum wage should go up, and all that, right?
Yeah.
They're making this $15 an hour thing out to be such a huge deal when it's really not. Because if you think about it, if you were paid, I think it was like $3.20 an hour for a high-paying job way back in the day when minimum wage first started, or even a couple of dollars, like $1.50 or $2 an hour, and that supported a family of 4 or 5.
Yeah.
If you look at the value of how much that minimum wage is in today's money, they are saying that it's around $23 to $25 an hour.
Oh yeah.
And people are bitching about 15.
Yeah.
Like,
and here's the biggest thing. Here's my biggest contention to that. You're getting on someone for what, like McDonald's, because everyone likes to harp on McDonald's, and like that's the person those employees are the ones who are leading this fight for this $15 an hour, raise. And yet people go ahead and, well, you want $15 for flipping a burger? Okay. How many times does your ass go to fucking McDonald's because you either didn't pack your lunch or you're just too lazy to bring something with you?
Or you don't feel like cooking dinner and you end up stopping there on your way home every night.
Yeah, they deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
These places, like grocery stores, they deserve it. They're serving your ass. They're making sure that you have food for your household, and yet we're not affording them food money to be able to buy food for their household.
I mean, look at it this way. $10.67 is the minimum wage in Colorado.
At the moment.
I was only getting paid $10.29 an hour at Floor and Decor.
Yeah.
I was actually getting paid below minimum wage, which is
illegal
as shit. And
not only were you getting paid below minimum wage, but you were also getting paid below minimum wage for a 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
Did
And
we make it work? Yes,
yeah.
because we were prudent and we had times where it's like we can't afford, like we like to, have
A date night.
one night where we order out.
Yeah.
And typically that's like Thursdays for nerd reasons.
Yeah. Nerds.
But when you were doing that, we had to cut that out. And any sort of money that came in, we were like, we have to put it toward bills, and we had to play that game of
borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
Can we pay this bill now, or is it something that we can afford to push back so we can take care of something that's a little more important?
Yeah. And even I was playing that, even now working where we are, like when I first started there and you weren't working yet, I was playing the same game.
Yeah.
Like, what can we afford versus what can, and with both of us working, we're set. Like,
we're okay.
We're okay. We're not flush and swimming in dough or whatever you want to call it, but we're comfortable. We can deal with it. Even with my income alone, it was a little bit of a struggle towards the first of the month when, rent.
Yeah.
But like the
we
rest
still
of
made
the
it
month,
work.
yeah. And that's the thing, is like I prioritized what was more important and what was less important.
I feel like we have diverted from what the original thing is. Hi, welcome to Chaotic Minds. But no, like for these people that, for all these people who are like, well, see, you're not successful because you don't have a degree, but yet we don't want to pay to let our children have the resources and the safety that they need to be able to succeed in high school, to be able to get into a college, is bullshit.
Hey, I mean, and I call horseshit on that anyway because I have a medical degree.
Yeah.
And I'm working security.
I don't have a like.
You have a degree.
No, it's not a degree. It's a certificate of completion.
Yeah, but he still went to college. He graduated.
Now, the second thing, and the reason why it ties is because of disrepair. There was a study that was done across U.S. military bases from California and Colorado and D.C. across the United States, right? And they found that a lot of these military bases were not fit for habitation. Like there was one base that the inspectors walked in and they smelled this funky smell, and when they asked about it, yeah, that's been around for a while. One of the methane pipes cracked, so we have a methane leak. And soldiers were still living in there. There was another place that they went to where they walked into a room that was supposedly empty, and there were squatters living in that room. They caught somebody living in that room because none of the window locks worked. The windows were broken or janked, and it's affecting the morale of our soldiers, of mine and your, brothers and sisters in arms. And yet we're once again just expected to,
roll over and take it.
Being former military yourself, we get taught, you just have to adapt with what you get.
Yeah.
You got to roll with the punches, and you got to deal with what you have.
I think that's why we're so good at doing that now.
Probably.
But no, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, there are 3 demographics of people that we should take care of without question. Our military, our children,
yeah,
and our elderly.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because
I say because like there are some elderly people that are just like, y'all, how much money do you have? Yeah, no, you can take care of yourself.
See, the thing
You
is,
can hire like nursing staff or something like that.
the thing is when they get to that age, their family's all about the money instead of taking care of them. So they shove them in some backwater nursing home that ends up killing them basically because they don't fucking hire the staff that actually enjoys doing their job and helping these people. They hire people that go through the motions and just really generally don't give a shit.
Not all of them.
Not all of them.
Like there's a bunch out here that I've actually gone to, and when I was working at one of my prior jobs, I had to go out to help out a couple of the seniors who had, vehicles there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one I can remember. This woman came out, and not 5 seconds later, her live-in helper also came out, and the owner of the vehicle was really hard of hearing. She had like the onset of Alzheimer's, so she didn't really like. There were times where she didn't remember what I had just said, and this woman who had no relation was being paid by the state. Went ahead and was like, "Tell me what's going on. I'll write it down," and she did, and I'll make sure that she knows and she has proof that this is what she actually needed.
And see that's assisted living is different from nursing home.
Oh, I'm aware.
And that's more of an assisted living. Nursing homes, they are basically set up like military dorms. And
I know.
half the time they don't have doors. And 90% of the time, even though they have a shower in their room, they're not allowed to utilize it without nurses' help. And nursing homes, every 10 days, you get a shower. Or a bed bath, depending on how much time or how many people they have.
I think that is a little bit biased with the nursing home that you had, the two nursing homes that you had to deal with prior family members.
No, this is dealing currently with our job, not only our job, but...
Because I haven't heard anything like that at our job.
Ask about Sherilyn.
Anyways.
Anyway, yeah, I have opinions. We won't go into those because that's that's a rant that I could do for 3 hours on one location.
That's another suspension thing.
Oh no, everybody there agrees with me. I would never get suspended for voicing that in the middle of the ER.
Anyway,
like we need to be taking care of our kids.
I will agree that we need to take care of our children because
and our military service members, man.
Our children are the ones who, when we go, they inherit what we left over.
Children will inherit the earth.
Now, granted, with how our ancestors, not all of them, but over the last couple of decades, have the people who come before us have treated this planet. We're leaving the planet like not in a good spot. But the children are the ones who are going to be making the policies. Our children are going to be the ones who are driving everything forward when we ourselves and our generation are in these nursing homes.
Yeah.
Military-wise, we need to support these guys.
Because when they come out and they're adjusting to civilian life, as it's called, even though there are several companies and all these places that hire vets and stuff like that, they don't give... Sorry. They don't give them special accommodation where, like, I know somebody that I was working with at King's. They had PTSD from the Iraq War.
Yeah.
After 9/11, they were over in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Three tours in a row. And they came back with severe PTSD, and they didn't have any adjustment to their schedule or the policy for attendance even though they were in the middle of a break.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. There should be some form of accommodation
I will agree
for
with you.
people like
I
that.
mean,
It's
when I
just
got
ridiculous.
when I got out, I wasn't in the best headspace myself. Like, it wasn't short. It wasn't long after I had gotten out that I'd gotten my diagnosis of being bipolar. And before I went in there, I didn't have bipolar. But after I came out, I did, and I had to go through that,
Yeah.
and it was just it. Like, I don't have PTSD. I didn't see any sort of combat, but I was isolated, and there were times where it felt like I was in solitary confinement. Because I could go outside and I could do all this, that, and the other thing. I didn't have anybody to talk to, and not having someone to talk to for months on end really messes with your psyche.
head.
And that's just, it's not even months on end. You can even chop it down to like weeks on end.
Yeah.
It messes with you.
I mean, think about me when I was working at the hospital as a respiratory therapist.
Yeah.
When I was working at Kindred overnights.
Mm-hmm.
I was the solo RT. None of the nurses associated with me unless they absolutely had to.
Yeah.
Dr. Yeager was the only doc that associated with me on a daily. Like, other than that, I was working 12-and-a-half-hour shifts with nobody to talk to.
Yeah.
Every day for a solid 3 years.
And humans are inherently social creatures.
Yeah.
We need to have that social interaction.
I might be a slight introvert. I prefer to stay at home.
I'm a big introvert. Like,
if I could make the money I am now working from home, I would be set. I would never leave, except for the grocery store.
I'm a big introvert. Like, I might put out like extroverted like tendencies. Like, I don't have a problem with starting up a conversation with people, right? But I don't. My social battery, or like my spoons, like, to use the spoon analogy, my spoons go so fucking quick throughout my day.
Yeah.
Like, I came home today, and I didn't have a whole lot of interaction. I didn't have a whole lot of, walking around to do or anything else like that. But I came home today and I was just plumb exhausted.
And that's
from dealing and being around a bunch of people. And you looked at me, you're like, why don't you just go to bed? And I'm like, well,
take a nap.
Can't.
But see, the thing is now you understand, like, there were days where I would ask for that extra hour because it's worse on nights.
Trust me, I get it. Like, I'm not knocking you for that. Like, the times that you would ask for extra hours, I never had a problem with being like, okay.
Or even on my days off when I just couldn't seem to get up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, on overnights, you take what you're doing on second shift, and I'm on overnights when pretty much everybody is sleeping, including some of the staff. We won't go into that. But no, like,
I mean, you go in, by the time you end up going in, it's dark. By the time you get out, it's still dark.
Yeah.
And the only real time that you actually see sunlight is when you wake up to get your day started.
Yeah, and that's like, but it's like,
and you're coming up with winter and with fall and winter coming. That time period
shorter days.
You're not gonna have
a whole lot of sunlight.
Yeah, you'll have like maybe half hour to an hour at most.
Yep, and it's just like, I'm on watches, and you know what those are like.
Yeah.
And
some are good.
Some are good. Some are bad.
Some are really bad.
Sometimes you just get sucked in the jaw. Anyways, but no, like, that's why I value those days, and I'm thankful for those days where we have no watches, because then I can get up and move around.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I'm stuck in the same place, sometimes for the full 8 hours without getting up, except to go to the bathroom when I have relief to go to the bathroom.
But turning it back, I mean, our military members have to go through that a lot. And, they don't really tell
Military, police,
they don't really
all of
tell
that.
you when you go in like that's going to happen.
They
And
don't
then for
prepare
us
you for that.
and then for them to go ahead and stick you in a barracks that may or may not be safe, may or may not be falling apart all around you, or in some instances you have a methane leak in the building.
Yeah.
That
It's
is
just gonna
so
blow
much
up.
worse. Or like you assume that the room next to you is empty because nobody's been assigned to it, and yet you're hearing noises in the middle of the night coming from that room, and then you find out fucking squatters are living there.
A, how they get on the base.
Well, there are ways.
Oh yeah, there are ways. But A, how'd they get on the base? B, how the fuck did they make it past all those like MPs and people walking around?
It's because morale is low. When morale is low,
Nobody gives a shit.
yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, whatever.
And
You know.
it's just, it's sad.
Now, am I
mean,
saying that we need to treat our military members like royalty? No.
we don't need to treat anybody like royalty. We need to treat everybody the same. But we need to start paying attention to those most vulnerable.
Yes,
Like,
I will agree with you.
that's 100%. Whether they be young, old, military members are protecting us here and overseas. So they're kind of important to keep them sane.
Yeah, and when the study was done, they found that because of the bases that were in such bad shape, it could and will more than likely lead to a decrease in our national security.
And our enrollment in the forces.
Yeah, but to tie everything together, these are two sections of our like government or whatever that we're supposed to be taking care of, and we're not.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I said they're two completely separate stories touching two different groups of people, but yet they have the same thing in common.
Yep.
And it's ridiculous. We need to start taking care of these people and these children, so that way, when they get to be they can make it to our age.
They're not going to be resentful pricks.
Yeah. But if you're in one of these areas, or if you're one of these groups of people that are being affected by this stuff, say something. Speak up. Make as much noise as you can with it. Is there a chance that there will be fallback and all that? Yeah, there is. But it's better than the alternative, and the alternative is you not being safe and you not being able to be taken care of. So say something. Speak up. Do what you can. And, go from there. Ugh. So now that those ones are done, now we can get into the meat and potatoes of what we went ahead and we've been putting off because new things have been coming out. It feels like almost every day, if not every week, when it comes to the former president, and some will say the still president, and that would be, what's been going on in the world of Donald Trump. As most people know, as most people in the United States know, Mr. Trump has been indicted in a case down in Georgia
For the election tampering.
For everything that happened down in Georgia when the 2020 election happened.
Mm.
And then another legal battle that he
January
was fighting.
6th.
Well, no, I'm not even talking about that one. Another legal battle that he was fighting was a legal battle in New York, and it's the one that's in New York was about fraud.
Yeah.
And in that instance, Mr. Trump was found that there was fraud that happened in New York.
wasn't that the article that came out the other day about him being convicted or
So it's not really a conviction. It's a judgment, and um, the trial for it starts Monday. But the initial like status, I guess you could call it,
the
pretty
initial
much.
status conference?
Well, pretty much saying there was an argument like, do they have a leg to stand on, and
Do they
will
have enough
this
evidence to go after him?
exactly? The judge found that yeah they do, and there's a lot of like things in this court document that we're not gonna be able to touch on. So we'll just try to give like a summary of what was said. Pretty much the summary that was issued on Tuesday says that the former president and his associates, including his sons Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, systematically overvalued corporate assets over a period of years. In one example, or in one instance, I guess they inflated the total square footage of a commercial building by like 300%. And then they also valued rent-controlled apartments equal with buildings where landlords were able to set their own prices for rent. Now there is still, appeals going on. Trump's lawyers have said, "Hey, we're going to appeal this," which is within their right, you know, but it does not look favorable by a lot of like legal experts. And the judge, one of the things that the judge wrote in the statement that he put out was, he was extremely upset with how this was, and he, granted this may have been, just a little bit of his temper slipping or whatever, but he pretty much said, that is a fantasy world of what they were trying to do, not reality.
And it's like there was another judge, and I forget the name of the judge that was doing coverage when this all first came out about the fraud in New York and whatnot.
Yeah.
That he was like, what angers him is the fact that it's gone on so long because of his status.
Yeah.
And that it's not right. And I mean, it's not. Rich, just because you're rich doesn't mean you should get any different treatment criminally than the poor.
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't even like this isn't the first like legal trouble that he has gone through with his business over the last couple of years. Like in 2017, he agreed to pay $25 million to settle fraud allegations linked to Trump University. If you remember that. So I mean, like he's faced a lot of fraud cases here recently, and there are some people, a lot of his supporters that are saying, this is a witch hunt going after him, and then there are those who are like, no, this is what is coming down for doing things a certain way, or not doing them the right way, or something to that extent. Where I will land in this is if there's evidence of a crime, regardless of who it is, there should be punishment that come down with it. Now, if
it should be the same.
If it's monetary punishment, then there should be monetary punishment. If it exceeds the monetary value, and it should be like some sort of jail time or something like that, then they should do that as well. It doesn't matter who. Like there's been troubles going on even with, President Biden and his son, and the House or the parts of Congress they've actually opened up an inquiry on impeaching Biden. If there's evidence of it, then absolutely he should be.
100%.
If there's not,
regardless.
If there's not, then let it die. But if there is irrefutable evidence of wrongdoing that happened by anybody, then that person should be held accountable for what they've done. You know, they if you mess up in doing something, or you purposely mislead, or whatever, then there are consequences for actions that you should have to face. We see all the time, like back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, right? Where these
Okay.
movie stars would go ahead and make a comment, that was either anti-Semitic or racially motivated or whatever,
Yeah.
and oh, I'm sorry, and then put themselves in. I was on something, so I'm putting myself into rehab.
Yeah, no.
If that was anybody else, they wouldn't have had that opportunity.
There would have been a witch hunt.
You know, if there is a crime that is committed, then you should be held accountable for it.
Regardless of your status or who you are.
Yeah, I mean, there was there's a story that came out of Europe, where in the country, when you get a fine, it's not it's there isn't like one flat rate. It's based on how much you make.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Like I saw this one story, the story that I'm actually referring to. This gentleman was caught speeding.
Yeah.
And exceeding the speed limit by a lot.
Yeah.
And because he made so much money in U.S. dollars, he ended up having to pay a fine of like $132,000.
Just for a speeding ticket. Yeah.
Now, there was somebody else who was caught speeding that was greatly exceeding the speed limit, just like this gentleman was, but they didn't make as much, and their fine was like a couple $100. That's how. There shouldn't be any sort of like, well, I'm this person, so you should let me go. It's like, no. I mean, I sat
that
there.
old phrase of, do you know who I am? I fucking hate that.
There was a couple videos that I saw of like Congress people getting pulled over. Whether it's state or government, like federal,
local or federal. Yeah.
They get pulled over and they have the audacity to look at the cop who's pulling them over. Do you know who I am? Yeah, I know who you are. Okay. I need your license, registration, proof of insurance. Like, I saw this one, it was a state senator. I can't remember what state it was for. But he got upset with the female cop who pulled him over and pretty much threatened her job.
Yeah.
To her face. And this was all caught on body cam. But then he was like, I want the captain. I want your captain. So captain showed up, and captain's like, look, she's just doing her job. Like, the captain had his officers back. And later on, when the video went out, or when the video came out, due to the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah.
It was all of a sudden a different tale, and I'm very sorry for what I did, and all that kind of stuff. But nothing came of it.
Yeah, which is not cool.
There was another one. It was a judge in Pennsylvania, which irritates the mess out of me because it's my home state. Got pulled over, and before the cop could even start walking up, the judge was out of his car. Do you know who I am? Run my license plate. This, that, and the other thing. Yeah. So the cop went ahead and ran it, and it turned out he was a judge. And the cop just goes up to the window and he goes, have a good day, judge. And lets the judge off. The judge ran a stoplight, ran a stop sign, and was speeding. And he wasn't even going to court. He was late for a private event.
And if I remember correctly, when people saw footage of that, he admitted that he'd even been drinking that night.
Yeah.
And so he was DUI as well.
Yeah. I mean, there was another one that we watched where these this entire department got shut down because they were the chief of that department and went ahead and did something illegal, was caught on camera for it. When they went to the department to get the chief, he was going to decline their search. He was going to reject their search warrant because it was signed by a magistrate, not a like it didn't say, it said magistrate, whoever, not judge.
Yeah.
And then when he
His
realized
own
that wasn't going
officers
to
turned
work,
his shit over.
when that wasn't going to work, he then tried to hide the phone that he used.
Yep. And his officers turned it over anyway.
No, his officers did not. The officers who came to get the evidence and to get that chief went through and executed that search warrant. So like it shouldn't matter like who you are or like what position you hold or anything else like that. Like if you mess up,
own up to it, dude.
Just know that eventually you're gonna get caught, and be ready for that. Don't try to be like, well, I'm this person, so I shouldn't be held accountable for this. No, you should be held accountable more because you're in that position that you're in.
Yeah.
If you're in a position of power over people, then you need to have that wherewithal to be like, I am in this position. I need to be better. I need to show and be a shining example of this. Not I'm this person. I have this power, so I can get away with whatever I want to.
Yeah,
and that goes all the way up.
See, they have something like that. There's a crime, and it's a very trigger warning SA crime. Mm-hmm. It's sexual assault on a person by a person in position of trust.
Right.
So judges, teachers, babysitters, that type of stuff. Priests. But it's just like they should have those additives.
Well, it's not even
to some of these crimes.
It's not that they should have additives. They should be held accountable the same way that somebody like you and I should be held accountable. Mm-hmm. Like if I went ahead and said, oh, hey, I'm going to take this money in and because I have I have this many properties and this is the size and this is how much they are, and they're not, then that's fraud and I should be in trouble for it. It doesn't matter who you are. If you break the law, you should be held accountable to the law. And granted, there are sovereign citizens who say, oh, the laws don't apply to me because, I operate off of maritime law. It's like, my biggest counter to that, are we on the ocean? No.
Yeah.
Are we by an ocean? No. Are you in a boat? No.
I'm on a boat.
Guess what? You're not operating on maritime law. Sorry.
Yeah.
End of statement. And then there are some people who are like, well, we have to follow the rules that are written in the Constitution. In the Constitution, the whole laws of the land are based off of that Constitution, right?
Yeah.
But in the Constitution, like there are some people who say, well, even the amendments, like any sort of amendment shouldn't be like followed because that's not what the original Constitution said. Then women can't vote. Then drinking, production of alcohol should not exist. And people of color should not be able to have any sort of rights. If you're going to go that far, then guess what? Then you have to follow it by what was originally wrote by our founding fathers. And go ahead and try to put that in society.
Yeah, because it's not going to work.
Dare you try to put that into society. I'm not even talking like the major two. Let's just try to go ahead and outlaw alcohol. Let's go ahead and try it. And guess what's going to happen? Prohibition times are going to happen again. And guess what? People are still going to get drunk. People are still going to have alcohol. And
only
if they don't have alcohol,
one song comes to mind. Let's start a riot.
Well, if people aren't going to drink alcohol, then they're just going to turn to something worse.
Yeah.
To get that same feeling. The laws that we have today are based off of the Constitution, but they are directed and worded in a way that is correct for society as we are right now.
Yep.
And that's what we have to that's what we have to take, we have to remember is these laws are wrote for us now. And so, like, do I believe that we should have the right to bear arms? Absolutely. We should have the right. The whole right to bear arms thing was because people wanted to have a militia just on the off chance that the government that they were living under turned into a tyranny, and they needed to fight it like they did with England. When England ruled over us.
Yeah.
Do I think that we should, like, every person on the planet, like in the United States, should have a firearm? No. Hell no.
There are some people I wouldn't trust with a rubber band gun.
Yeah. Like, there are some people I wouldn't trust with a freaking salt gun to kill insects with. But we should also leave certain things to the people who are put in power above us. Because we are in the right now in this day and age that we're in, we are in an age of accountability. Like, you can't walk down the street and there's no camera anywhere. You cannot do that. Whether it's a business camera, whether it's a body cam, whether it's a GoPro, or whether it's a cell phone, you cannot go anywhere in the United States where there is not some form of recording device. We are in the age of accountability. If something is wrong, then it's going to show up and people are going to have an opinion about it. Are some people going to defend that? Absolutely. Are some people going to be like, no, this is wrong? Absolutely. That's where, the society is split between, is this okay for this person because insert whatever, or should everybody be held to the same accountability as the next person?
100%.
And I agree. I'm real big. Like, even when it comes to, like, punishing the kids, I don't punish the kids different. Like, one of our kids doesn't do something gets taken away from them that they enjoy. Another one of our kids does something wrong or does the exact same thing wrong. Guess what? They have the same punishment. Something gets taken away from them that they enjoy. And that's how it should be. Equality needs to be equal across the board. It shouldn't matter how much you make or what job you have or what position you're in, whether you're the CEO of a company, whether you're a burger flipper at McDonald's or Wendy's, or whether you're in the highest echelons of a government. You need to be held accountable just like everybody else.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that one.
So if there's any sort of wrong, if there's any irrefutable proof that wrongdoing has been done, and with Donald Trump or Joe Biden or anybody else associated with either one of those, they need to be held accountable for it. Period. End of statement. And if you are refusing to believe that, then I can't help you. And if these people are refusing to accept it, well, it's almost like these are the consequences of the actions that we ourselves have committed. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you do something right, then you're going to have something right happen. If you do something wrong, there will be punishment, or there should be punishment handed down the same as everybody else.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, it needs to be equal across the board, but it never really is. The more money you have, the more you can get away with.
Well, a lot of that, I think, has to do with the fact that, we have these people that are like, look, I know you have this much money. I will help you in this way, but you have to slip me something, or you owe me a favor. And it's wrong. For example, let's take something else that's been happening here recently with the Supreme Court. Justice Clarence Thomas getting private jet rides, or having, tuition paid for, like, I think, like, one of his nieces, like one of his nephews or grandkids or whatever, or going on these multi-million-dollar fucking trips, vacations, and stuff like that. If it was anybody else, any other judge lower than Supreme Court, they would not be a judge anymore. Period. End of statement. Or they
Yeah,
would be
and
like,
that's
if there's something that came up that the person that offered them all of this was a part of, they would be forced to recuse themselves.
yeah.
And there's nothing like
There's no accountability.
there isn't, and there needs to be. It's just accountability is accountability. My mom put it away when I was younger. If you go to bed, right,
Yeah.
and the only thing that you have to your name is a pillow to lay your head on and a pot to piss in, there is one other thing that you have, and that's your integrity. If you don't have your integrity, you don't have anything.
Which is 100% on point.
With the way that the world is going now, and people getting away with whatever because they have, I'm this person, or I have this much power, or I have this much money. That's how are they having any sort of integrity? How are they showing or being
They don't
forced?
care about their integrity. They care about their money. That's the thing.
I know. It's when the
sucks.
world go from let's take care of our neighbors, let's be trustworthy, let's be courteous, let's show the integrity that we were born and raised with, to fuck everything, I want money. When did that happen?
I don't know. Died with the age of being able to... Never mind. Corporal punishment.
Yeah.
What they call corporal punishment
Well,
now.
no, I mean, the people that we're referring to were back in the age where corporal punishment was a big fucking thing. You messed up, you got 3 swats on the butt, or you had to go outside and pick a switch.
That mentality ended with the corporal punishment. Like, you can't discipline your kids without a fear of going to jail.
That. You can't even say that, because you and I were raised with corporal punishment. It's just here recently, like our children's generation.
Corporal punishment crossed with participation trophies.
Yeah. I will agree with you. But that was a lot.
Yeah.
I'm spent. I'm burnt.
Yeah, I'm dead.
So I know this may be a disappointment to some people, who are like, "Hey, I want you guys' opinion on all of this." I'm sorry.
We've had a long week.
And trying to delve into the legalese is just, it gave me a headache, and I like reading.
Yeah, that's why I read that stuff when I'm trying to go to bed, because it's boring and it makes me sleepy.
But anyways, thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming back a second day in a row. This is our makeup episode from last week.
It's the apology note.
Really is. But thank you all so much for hanging with us. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, just hit that download button on Spotify if you're on Spotify.
Download, woo!
Or, hit that, make sure whatever you're using, hit like. It does get back to us. And it lets us know, like, hey, we like what we're hearing. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, it lets them know, like, hey, we want more of this content. If you want to donate, we do have a link in our description. You don't have to, but it does help us. And once again, it's one of those things that lets us know, like, hey, we want to hear more. We want to help you be able to make more of these and give more of your opinions and whatnot. But as always, don't forget to love each other. And
yeah, don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Have a good night, guys.
Bye.